welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to another video and welcome to my 22 books to read in 2022 video. Obviously, as that name suggests, I will be sharing with you the 22 books that are top priority for me to read in 2022. I think this might be the last year that I do the same number as the year because I have a lot of other books that I need to read, and making a priority for all of them is quite hard. But I like this list. I think it's fun nonetheless. So if I can't get to all of these, it's okay. But if I can get to all of them, I would be extremely happy. And it'll be fun to react to at the end of the year to see just how well I did. But this year, I'm taking a little bit of a different approach to my 22 books to read in 2022 list. I really wanted to focus on specific things this year to kind of help fill up my reading, but also make sure that I'm hitting some of the goals that I really want to. So the first one is continuing on with series. I would really love to continue on with some series this year and hopefully finish some series up if I can. So I have a few books here that is going to accomplish that. I also have some 2021 releases that I just didn't get to last year that I would love to prioritize this year. And then finally, I would like to get to a few 2022 releases. So last year, I really just chose books that I thought that I would like. This year, I'm going in with a little bit more of a strategy, but with hopes that it will kind of diversify the amount of books that I'm reading and the different kind of books that I'm putting on my TBR, because a lot of the times the books that I read are very backlisted, and I would like to read some new books as well while also continuing series. So since I don't own any of these books, I'm going to start with the books that are released in 2022 that I am very excited for. The one that you know I'm going to talk about, and that is none other than House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, the second book in the Crescent City series. I cannot stop gushing about Sarah J. Maas and this book. You guys know it's my favorite book of all time. Nothing has been able to top it just yet, and I am so excited for the long-awaited sequel to this book. I am so freaking pumped. If you don't know what the first book in the series is about, it follows Bryce Quinlan, who is kind of the center of a very large and intense investigation. You have the knowledge that a crime has happened, and it involves Bryce in quite a major way. And I think that they found who committed the crime. However, about a year later, the crimes keep popping up, and Bryce is tasked with figuring out who the culprit is. And because this is a dangerous task, she is basically given a bodyguard in the form of wonderful and amazing and sexy Hunt Athalar, who is a fallen angel, and it is a fantasy romance between the two of them, but also this big and interesting murder mystery plot with some really fantastic characters, and it really depicts grief as well, which I love so much in this book. So I'm very excited to see what Sarah J. Maas does with the second book and where we're going to go, and the amount of time that she's going to rip my heart out in this book, I am ready for it. Then we have Where the Drowned Girls Go by Shauna McGuire, which is the 7th book, I believe, in the Wayward Children series. This is a series that I really enjoyed, and I'm very excited to continue to read on with those books. I do need to read the 6th book in the series in order to catch up to book 7, but you can read these books out of order, so I will definitely try to get to this one this year. It will also help me complete a series because that is the last and final book that has currently been published in this world, so that'd be great if I could actually read it and get caught up with the series. But this series follows wayward children who stumble into portal worlds that feel like their home. They feel like they belong, and for one reason or another, they get kicked out or they stumble out of their doors once again, and they get sent to Eleanor's home for wayward children to kind of reacclimate to life, and they spend a lot of their time trying to figure out how to get back to their doors. And each book follows like a different character from Eleanor's home for wayward children and their experience, and the found family aspects that you have. It has a ton of representation. It's a fantastic little novella series, and they're so short, so if you would like to give them a try, I highly recommend. Up next, we have Electric Idols by Katie Robert. This is the second book in the Olympic something series. I forget. The first one being Neon Gods. I loved Neon Gods so much. I'm very excited to finally get around to book 2. I have been waiting for the release. I believe it comes out this month, actually, in January, and I'm very excited for it. I believe this one follows Persephone's sister, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm just excited to be back into this world and to delve back into this BDSM like style writing. I love Katie Roberts. She is one of the best smut writers that I have had the privilege of reading, and I'm so excited to read some more of her stuff, so hopefully I love it just as much as Neon Gods. Then, of course, we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Everyone is raving and ranting about this book release, and I am no exception. Emily Henry has written 2 of my favorite books, and that is Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation. I have loved both of them thoroughly. Both ended up in my favorites of the year list, and she's definitely an author that I would love to continue to read from. Her next release is called Book Lovers. I know it follows 2 book writers, or maybe 2 book, I don't know. Something about books and falling in love, and that's all I need. I just need to know that Emily Henry wrote it, and that it's a book about books, I'm in. Then we have Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. This is the prequel to Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, which was one of my favorite books of last year. I absolutely love that short little fantasy book, and Akwaeke Emezi put in some really wonderful like metaphors and topics about life in that book that I just love so much. It's so short, it's amazing. The audiobook is fantastic. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I try not to over-explain the synopsis because it is so short, and I want you kind of to experience the world in and of itself, but has some fantastic representation, really great storyline, and a really great lesson to be learned at the end. So if you haven't read the first one, I highly recommend it, but I am looking forward to Bitter, which is the prequel about Jam's mom, and I'm very, very excited for it. Then, of course, we have Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. As you guys know, I'm a huge Colleen Hoover fan. Even though I've only read 2 of her books, I love her writing, and I think she's a fantastic writer, and I'm really excited for her newest release. I honestly don't know too much about this. I know that it's supposed to be a hard-hitting book. I think that it follows maybe... you know what? No, I'm not going to butcher it. I'm not going to even try. I haven't really read the synopsis. I just saw that Colleen Hoover was putting out a new book, and I knew that I needed to have it. Again, I'm pretty sure this book comes out in January, so hopefully I can get my hands on it relatively soon and read it ASAP. And then the final 2022 release that we're going to talk about is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is a YA dark, mysterious fantasy type book with a little bit of like horror thriller vibes to it. I did pre-order a special edition of this book, so I do really need to read it. I have loved everything V.E. Schwab has written so far that I have read, and I'm so excited to give this another book a try. I think this follows a young girl who gets a letter from her family member to come to the Gallant house. However, when she arrives, she realizes that the letter is years old and the person that invited her is now dead. But underneath this house is another house, a like mirrored house of it sounds very confusing, but also very intriguing. I don't really know how to explain it that makes sense, but I'm very excited for it, and hopefully I really enjoy it. Okay, up next, we're going to talk about 2021 releases that I didn't get around to last year that I would love to read this year. The first one being Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Everyone has been ranting and raving about this book. Clint is the person that really makes me want to read this because he loves it. It is now his new favorite book of all time, and I need to read it. As you guys know, I've been reading a lot of TJ Klune this year, including his River Creek. It's Green Creek series, and I'm almost done with that series. I'm actually going to be reading the conclusion of that series this month, and I love TJ Klune. He has solidified himself as one of my new favorite authors for sure, and I'm really excited for this one. This one follows Wallace, who dies, and he's not happy with that experience. He doesn't want anything to do with that, and he has a week after his death to kind of live the best life that he really wanted, and he falls in love with the tea shop owner in the in-between on the like cusp of life and death. So I'm really excited for this one. Hopefully it's as good as everyone says it is, but knowing TJ Klune, it will be. Then we have another one that I don't quite own yet, and that is because I just haven't bought it, but it was on my anticipated releases list of last year, and I still haven't gotten around to it, and that is In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland, I believe. I really want to read this. It is a polyamorous fantasy, like, excuse me? That's everything I could have wanted and more. It has obviously LGBTQI plus representation. I just heard really good things about this one so far, and I'm really excited for it. I really don't know the synopsis of this, but polyamorous fantasy pulled me right in, and I'm so hyped for it. Hopefully I can pick myself up a copy relatively soon and read it because I'm so pumped for it. Then we have another sequel, and that is Gods and Monsters by Shelby McCurran. This is the last book in the, what is that called? Serpent and Dove series. I really loved the first one. I did not love the second one. I'm really hoping the third and final book will bring it around and I will hopefully love it, but I was very disappointed by book 2. But I think that book 3 has a lot of potential and I'm really excited for it. This one follows it's like a older French setting, I believe. And you have a witch and a witch hunter who end up having to forcibly marry, and it's the story of them two falling in love along with all the political antics that come along with this. I loved these characters and I'm really excited to see where they go. Hopefully the third book does not let me down. We have yet another sequel. Are you seeing a theme here? We have Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This is the sequel to These Violent Delights, and it is a duology, so I'm really hoping to finish out this duology at the hopefully beginning of this year. I was sent a copy from Owl Crate, so I have a really cool special edition of this book, and I'm really excited to get around to this. I thought that the book was good. It wasn't my favorite, but I'm interested to see what the second book is going to do. I think that the writing style and the entirety of the plot has a lot of potential. The plot in the first one just didn't click for me, so I'm really hoping that book 2 is really good. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling in 1920s Shanghai, and including the retelling aspect, you also have this plague that is causing people to rip their throats out. So I'm very excited to get around to this one. I've heard good things so far about the ending of this duology, so hopefully I love it, and hopefully I love it more than book 1. Oh, what do you know? Another sequel. We have The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I am so excited for this book. I read The Inheritance Games in December and absolutely loved it and immediately picked myself up a copy of the sequel. I need to read this. I'm so excited. Hopefully I can get this on my February TBR just because I'm so pumped for it. But this one follows, I'm not going to remember her name. Avery. Avery, who one day gets a letter from this prestigious household saying that she needs to come for a reading of the will, where she learns that she has inherited billions of dollars, all these estates, all these cars, a foundation, and she's like, but why? I didn't even know this man. I don't know why I inherited all of this. And his family is equally as confused because the man that died had a very large family and they basically got nothing in the will. And they're all trying to figure out why Avery was chosen, what connection she has to the main guy as well as the will, and it becomes a puzzle and a game to try to figure it out. And it was so good, so intriguing, kept me on the edge of my seat, and I'm really excited for book 2. The next book definitely can be considered a sequel as well, and that is Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. This is the prequel to The Hate U Give. I love The Hate U Give, and I've heard really good things about Concrete Rose. I've heard it's not as good as or as hard-hitting as The Hate U Give, but I still think that it's going to be a really heart-wrenching and powerful story that I'm very excited to read. This one follows Mav, who is the father of the main character in The Hate U Give Star, and it's about his life as he finds out that he's going to be a father just coming out of prison, and he wants to create a better life for himself and for his family. So I'm really excited for this one. I meant to read it last year, just didn't get around to it. Hopefully I can devour it this year and love it. And finally, we have the last 2021 release that I didn't get to that is also a sequel, and that is Payback by Kristen Simmons. I don't know how so many sequels ended up on this list, but as you can see, you know where my priorities are. And this is the third and final book in the Vale Hall series. I read books 1 and 2 in December of 2020. Kristen Simmons was our group book and author for the Merry Bookmas live show, and I loved book 1 and 2, and I had started book 3. I just didn't get around to finishing it, so I would love to finally get around to the last and final book in this series and hopefully love it. This follows a school for con artists. That's really all you need to know. It's a fun mystery thriller type series, and it's such a great time. I'm hoping that I love it. I'm not sure if the angle changed, my husband called me, but we are now moving on to my sequels that I would love to get to in 2022. We will start with the only one that I do not own, and that is The Play by Elle Kennedy. This is the third book in the Briar U series, which is a spin-off to the Off Campus series, and it is a sports romance series that I really enjoy. It is a hockey romance, and I have just loved every book in the series so far. They are companion novels, so technically you could read them out of order, but I have enjoyed reading them in order, and I'm really excited to get around to this one. I've heard nothing but good things about the third and fourth books in the series, so hopefully I can read book 3 and eventually book 4 as well to finish out that series. Okay, the first sequel that I would love to get to is Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan. This is the last and final book in the Percy Jackson series. I have been reading this book series for far too long. I started my reread of this series in April of 2020, and I'm still not done with it. So I would love to finally get this off of my list of books to read, or reread, I should say. But I really enjoyed the series. It's a really fun middle grade. I'm not going to talk too much about it because most people know what the series is about. If you haven't read the books, then you probably watched the movie. With the new adaptation coming out, I would love to finally finish this and finally move on to some Rick Riordans that I haven't actually read. So hopefully I can get to this one ASAP. Up next, we have Lover Enshrined by J.R. Ward. I am currently in the middle of reading the 5th book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, which has made me even more excited to pick up book 6. This one is Fury's book, and I am really excited for it. The book that I'm currently reading is giving me a lot of hints to what Fury's book is going to entail, and so I'm very excited to read this one. I have talked about the Black Dagger Brotherhood series so many times in the last few videos, so I'm not going to talk about the synopsis of this, but I'm just going to say that I'm very excited, and hopefully it's so good. Up next, I would love to read the second book in the Imperium trilogy by Claire Legrand, being Kingsbane. The first one is Furyborn. I really enjoyed the first book in the series, although if I'm not careful, I'm going to have to reread book 1 just to understand book 2 because it's been quite a long time since I read it, and it is quite an intense and intricate fantasy. So hopefully maybe I can just read a summary on this one and get into book 2, but I am really excited for it. I'm not going to try to explain the synopsis because I don't remember it enough and I don't want to butcher it, but I am excited to get around to this one and hopefully it's good. Then we're going to talk about 2 back-to-back V.E. Schwab books that I'm excited to get to, and the first one being A Gathering of Shadows by, of course, V.E. Schwab. This is the second book in the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. I am very excited for this one. I have been putting this off for some reason and I don't really understand why. I absolutely loved book 1 and I'm very excited for book 2. The first book follows Kel, who is an Ansari, I believe, and he has the ability to travel through to different Londons. Basically, in this world, there are 4 different Londons, Red London, White London, Black London, and Grey London. The only London that's not currently a a feasible city to live in is Black London. However, when a piece of magic comes out of Black London and starts plaguing the world, Kel is forced to team up with a local thief named Delilah Bard and help save the kingdom. I'm very excited for book 2. I am hoping some things develop between these two characters, but I really loved book 1, and I'm hoping that book 2 is just as good. And then, like I said, back-to-back the Schwabs, I have Vengeful. This is the second book in the duology for Vicious, or the Villain series. I would love to get around to this one. I have heard good things about this one, even though most people said that they were fine for it being a standalone, and a lot of people considered Vicious a standalone, but I am really excited for book 2. I actually don't know what it's about. I have never read the synopsis of book 2. I'm going to keep it that way. Hopefully I enjoy it. The thing that I love the most about Vicious was how fast-paced and crazy it was, and the multiple perspectives and the time jumps, so I'm hoping that's also included in this book, but we shall see. I'm hoping I love it, but that's with everything. I hope I love everything. The second to last book that we're going to talk about is Dark Dawn by Jay Kristoff. This is the last and final book in the Nevernight Chronicles, I believe is what it's called. The third book in the trilogy, basically. And I'm very excited for this. I loved book 1, and I loved book 2 even more, so I'm very excited for book 3. These books are just... It takes me a lot to get to them because the writing style is quite intense, the footnotes are a lot, and it just takes a lot of energy and time to consume these books, so I have been putting it off for a little while. Plus, it's not small. They're very chunky. They're over 400 pages each, so hopefully I can get around to book 3 and love the end of this trilogy. I'm very excited for it, but I'm scared to actually put it on a TBR to read it. And the last and final book that we're going to talk about today in my 22 books to read in 2022 is another chunky book, and that is Gemina by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I'm very, very excited about this one. This is actually 2 back-to-back Jay Kristoffs as well. I didn't realize that. But this is the sequel to Illuminae, which I really enjoyed. Seeing as I don't read a ton of sci-fi, I was very nervous and apprehensive to pick this book up, well, the first book, and I really, really enjoyed it. So now I would love to get back into this world and read book 2. I just love the crazy mixed media format that this book is written in. I think that it's so clever and so interesting, and the audiobooks for these are absolutely insane and so cool. So I'm very excited to get around to book 2 and hopefully get around to book 3 at some point. I'm excited for this. I'm nervous though, because again, it's chunky. Even though it's mixed media, it's still chunky, so we shall see when it gets put on a TBR, but when it does, I'm going to be very excited. Okay, so here is the majority of my 22 books to read in 2022 list. Hopefully I can get around to these ones. Obviously the ones I'm missing are the ones I don't own, as well as my 2022 releases, but I'm going to put this down because I'm pretty sure it's going to fall. I'm very excited for all of those books though, and I would love to know down below if you have a list of 22 books that you want to read this year, or a list of whatever number you want to read this year. Let me know some of those books that are on there. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know if you read any of these and which ones I should prioritize and which ones you absolutely loved or hated. But I would love to hear your thoughts on that as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and of course leave any comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Baby, turn it down.